Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is having dinner with President Trump tonight on his third visit to the White House in the last 6 months. The big topic of discussion will be a ceasefire deal to end the war in Gaza, which President Trump has made clear is a diplomatic achievement he wants to complete. But Israel and Hamas appear deadlocked on whether the agreement will lead to a permanent end to the fighting, which has raged on for about 21 months. NBC's Vaughn Hilliard is live at the White House. Richard Haass is President Emeritus at the Council on Foreign Relations. And David Ignatius is a foreign affairs columnist at The Washington Post and, of course, an MSNBC contributor. Vaughn, I want to start with you. What do we know about what the Trump administration wants to get out of this meeting today?
Well, there's a deep schism still here as to exactly what the vision for this end of this war looks like. Just last week, the president suggested that Israel had agreed to the 60-day ceasefire. Hamas pushed back on some points, effectively bringing that would-be ceasefire into deep question. Now, there was also a meeting running parallel to this one between an Israeli delegation working with Qatari diplomats to try to work out a potential end to this war. At the same time, Bibi Netanyahu has made it very clear that an end to this war must include the complete destruction of Hamas. It was 5 months ago here at this very White House that the president, standing alongside the Israeli prime minister, suggested that there would be potentially a takeover of Gaza in the removal of the 2 million remaining Palestinians off of the Gaza Strip. Of course, here for the president, he put significant pressure on Netanyahu to bring an end in a ceasefire between Iran and Israel here in the last 2 weeks, putting pressure on him, despite the Israeli prime minister making it clear that they wanted to ensure that the nuclear enrichment program of Iran was completely decimated. I want to let you listen to the president yesterday returning from his New Jersey golf club here to the White House ahead of these talks. Take a listen.
What's your message going to be to Netanyahu tomorrow?
Well, we're working on a lot of things with Israel, and one of the things is probably a permanent deal with Iran. In other words, they have to give up all of the things that you know so well. The attack turned out, according to every single atomic energy commission, that was a complete and total obliteration.
The president has given significant leeway to Prime Minister Netanyahu in his war in Gaza. More than 50,000 Palestinians have died. There are still 20 hostages believed to be alive that Hamas remains a hold of here. And as part of any negotiation, it has been very clear here that Hamas must turn over not only those that are still alive, but the 30 hostages that are believed to be dead. There is still that wide schism here and a lot of serious questions for this administration about what kind of pressure they intend to put on Netanyahu on his visit here to D.C. this evening.
All right, Vaughn Hilliard at the White House, thank you. Richard, I want to turn to you because in a matter of months, Israel has really altered the state of play in the Middle East. They've made really big strides, almost decimating Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and gone after Iran's nuclear and ballistic missile infrastructure. All that, of course, was accomplished using military force. So I want to ask you, if that makes it easier or harder to now move on to the diplomatic aspects of what needs to be done in this region.
Well, a couple of reactions. You're exactly right, but they haven't solved certain problems. They've not, to use the president's favorite word, obliterated Iran's nuclear capabilities. Some survived the attacks either because they weren't there or they simply survived them. And also Hamas has not been militarily eliminated. It's been diminished significantly, but not eliminated. So Israel's accomplished big things. What they have done militarily and the political benefits that have accrued to the prime minister as a result give them the possibility, give them the potential to act diplomatically, whether it's in Gaza or anywhere else. The real question is whether they will choose to. There is an opening here. But again, the Israeli government for more than 18 months now has been reluctant to articulate, much less implement, a so-called day-after strategy for Gaza. So I think it's possible, I'll be curious to hear what David has to say, that you could get perhaps another temporary cessation of hostilities, a 60-day truce. But I still don't think we are on the brink of getting anything like a permanent ceasefire for Gaza.
David, I'll turn it over to you. I mean, do you agree with that? Is there at this point any kind of day after plan coalescing, even from the U.S. or from Gulf allies or anywhere?
So the clearest version I'm aware of is coming from Gulf allies, the United Arab Emirates in particular. The UAE has been talking with Ron Dermer, who's really the closest political advisor to Prime Minister Netanyahu, about a plan for the day after that would draw in key Arab countries as supporters, partners in a transition process in Gaza under non-Hamas governance. The question of whether the Palestinian Authority would play any role in convening that transitional partnership is one of the issues that's still very contentious. I think in terms of the broader question that we're talking about, one factor is President Trump's frustration, impatience really, with Prime Minister Netanyahu to end the war in Gaza. He wanted this war ended when he was inaugurated in January, and it's continued, and the frustration, sometimes anger level from Trump has been clear, and I think is part of the discussion here. The sticking point remains the same one it's been for a year. Hamas says, we want an assurance that this war is really going to end before we give up our last bargaining chips, namely the hostages they so cruelly hold, and the current version is that the U.S. And its partners, Egypt and Qatar, will make their best efforts to bring an end to the war. But that's not the same thing as a guarantee, obviously. A final factor is that Trump has the ambition, and Netanyahu may finally have the opportunity to think about a broader deal on the ending of all these military victories across the region, to normalize relations with Saudi Arabia, to open a security pact with their neighbor Syria, with whom Israel was at war for so many years. So there are a lot of things in the background that people described to me last week as thinking big in this moment where Israel has military victory. Think big about diplomacy. Whether that'll happen, usually with the Middle East, the best bet is to be pessimistic and say it won't. But those are things that are in the air.
Richard, I want to ask you something David just mentioned, which is the president's frustration with Netanyahu. This is a relationship that certainly have its ups and downs, but recently Trump has kind of inserted himself into Israeli domestic affairs, talking about this ongoing corruption and fraud trial against Netanyahu, calling it a witch hunt. Where is the relationship between these two men? Does one have the upper hand? And do you think they're going to be able to agree on any of the things we just heard David talking about?
Well, you're right. The president has inserted himself into the Israeli domestic political landscape. Maybe he's identifies or empathizes a bit with Bibi Netanyahu, who's on the receiving end of all these legal investigations and the like. But look, this president is a great believer in America first. He's the word I would use to describe Donald Trump is unsentimental. He is willing to treat any ally at arm's length, including Israel. America first is not Israel first on any number of occasions, dealing with the Houthis, dealing with Hamas, dealing with Iran. The president has not done what Bibi Netanyahu wanted him to do at a specific time. So I think there's some distance. I actually think the president has the upper hand. He's arguably the most popular man in Israel, in part because of what just happened with Iran. So the real question is whether Donald Trump, who's not getting anything what he wants with the Ukraine-Russia negotiation, whether he's prepared to use leverage on Bibi Netanyahu, play to the hostage issue, and put pressure on the Israelis. By the way, not just in Gaza, but ultimately it would have to be in the West Bank as well, where 3 million Palestinians live, and the Israelis continue to expand settlements. So I think there's an opening here. The real question is whether Bibi Netanyahu is willing and whether he's politically able to walk through it. And Donald Trump's going to have to decide how much pressure, privately and publicly, he's willing to apply.
All right, Richard Haass, David Ignatius, thank you both so much for your expertise.